Hello, I'm Mike Lanier from the CarShowNationals.com Let's Roll podcast. I've been contacted by several people this year already to see how to run a car show. I've had teachers, I've had nursing homes, uh, contact me and reach out to me. Um, I had advertised car show flyers on my website since 2001, and that's on CarShowNationals.com. But I've always had people reach out to me saying, "How can we run a car show?" or "What do you need to do to run a car show?" So I eventually end up running or being a part of having a team running a car show. So I did gain some experience from that and learned a lot along the way. Um, there's a lot of things to consider when you run a car show. Um, I got reached out to by Lee Yonker out of where is he out of? Out of South Central Kentucky. So that's who reached out to me. He's a teacher, so I'm gonna see what I can do. Uh, could be a she, Lee Ann Yonker. So um, I'm gonna see what I can do to help. So the first thing is obviously finding a venue. That's what I had tried to do. Trying to see where the best place would be. You got to check and see if that's going to cost you some money or not. I found a place that did not cost me any money. It was a collector car type sales place, and they opened up the lot to me. The only thing that I needed is I had to get porta potties, which did cost about $550. So there are added costs, even if you get free. There's stuff that you might have to look into. But the venue is the first place. What I would try to do, especially if someone new, I suggest finding a car club in your area to see if they can help you out and maybe need some volunteers because you're going to need a team of people to help you. Um, I've done it with a couple people, but it's a challenge. It's a lot of work, especially if you're handing out flyers or passing them around different car shows, stuff like that. Um, Best thing to do, is get the word out. So locking up a location would be the first thing. See what else you're gonna need to run the car show at that location. If it's free, there might be hidden costs if they don't want you to use their restrooms, stuff like that. So that's something you should look into. If you have all that and you don't have any overhead on that, that's great. Then you can use it for other things. But they say to get a budget planned. The hard part is knowing how many cars are going to go to the car show. So I do suggest doing a Facebook event. Um, and a lot of times people will say they're going or they're interested. I take that kind of with a grain of salt. You can't base your numbers on the Facebook people saying that they're going. I would say about 50% of those people don't go. So you can't always count on a number from that. So it is hard to kind of gauge how many people are going to come. But I would say when people say they're going, I'd say maybe half of those might not show up. So when you're planning that, um, basically, when you're doing your financials, you're gonna have to look at your overhead costs. Like, are you gonna want to get a DJ? I did at my shows uh, that I'd help run. I'd suggest that because you might need some type of speaker system to announce the winners. If you're gonna do announcing and trophies, um, using their PA system will help with that. And you can play music during the show, which people do enjoy. I myself, I like the little added music to a show. It adds a little to it. Um, but I'd plan one person being in charge of the overall show, and then I would say get a team of people like a host car club, or just reach out to people and see if they're willing to help you. Some of your friends, family, even uh, anything helps. I would see how much the venue is going to cost. If you have to pay for a venue, you gotta put that in your budget. I've worked with companies like AutoZone. I've had the Sports Car Club of America reach out to me quite a few years ago. Um, but AutoZone, their stadium was going to cost $20,000. So you got to look at the overall big picture. They could get 200 cars in there at $20,000. You got to figure out how you're going to pay that. You can't get much for vendors in the stadium, so it's it's going to be a kind of a risk trying to raise that much money and break even, and they don't want to spend money. So you got to look at all the numbers. I just thought it would be hard for them to make it. I mean, they were talking they could bring all these sponsors in, but they couldn't even bring their trucks into the stadium. So I don't know how much good that would do, but if they can come up with some money for you, that'd be great. Um, but if it's hard to even sell their products or anything like that, that could be an issue. Um, you want to look at insurance if you need insurance. If you have a place that a business, usually their insurance possibly cover an event like that, but you want to check with the owner of the business and make sure that's not going to be an issue. Um, Permits, that's another thing. You might need a permit, but some of the businesses you can get around that. But if you're trying to have one in a place that's not normally business, you'd have to make sure you don't have to have any required permits to have something like that. Um, Also, if you're gonna do a car show to raise money for your business, it's a little tougher to get sponsors. If you're doing it for a cause, like cancer or something like that, usually people donate 100% of the money to that cause, except you want to take out your expenses out of the money that you raise. I'd say on the flyer itself, 100% goes to the cause other than expenses. Because that sends, or I've seen different people that run car shows that run into that. They don't realize there's expenses to a car show. Um, and I've seen people have run car shows for years get in that controversy. So just make sure that they know that some of the money is going to go to running the show. Make sure you do have the restrooms. That's a big thing, and I did have to get those. Um, you could run into traffic control issues. Look into that. See if that'd be an issue, especially if you go on a cruise. If you go on a cruise, I found out that in our area you have to use county roads. You can't go into a town or city because that could be a problem. It might be against um, some of their regulations or statutes or whatever you want to call it. That could be something that you'd have to check into. I called the actual town that we're going to cruise through, and they said you couldn't do it. So it's always good to check into that if you have a cruise portion of it. I know a large cruise, they have quite a few cars, and they have to pay police officers at multiple intersections. That can add up too. You're talking $200-300 a police officer, so you might have to add that into your equation of how much it's going to cost. Signage, I was big on signage, especially when I had a cruise and I had signs, you know, every intersection where to turn, stuff like that. Um, Signage is always a good thing for the car show too, so people can find it. So you want to post some signage around the area where people can locate where the car show is. Um, I got notes here, so I'm just kind of going through them. Banners would be good. You can do banners. You can get some on Vistaprint. That's what I use. This one behind me was made for me by a friend of mine, but Vistaprint has some pretty good pricing on some of the banners, so that's something to look into. Trophies. Are you going to have trophies at the car show? That's an added expense. Or you can have a top 10 or top 20, or people just vote for their top 3 or 4 favorite cars. You total all the votes up, and whoever's in your top 10 or 20 will get a trophy. Or you could have the first, second, third place type trophies. That's going to be usually based on votes by all the participants in the show. I had, when I did my cruise, we had window cards. And you should have window cards for a car show. It's going to look something like this. It's going to have the number of car, uh, make, model, year, color, stuff like that. You're going to have that filled out. And of course, you do it. You number it by the cars that come in. So registration number 1 would be your first car, and then you'd want to have someone fill out a notebook or something, or a computer program, Excel, whatever you want to do. Just the number of the car, possibly make if you want to do that, and their name, and their phone number. I'd at least get that information, so if they're not at the show at the end, you can at least get a hold of them if they win a trophy and if they've left early. On the back of the card, what I'd do if I had a cruise involved with my show, I'd put the map on the back side, and that just saves you money. That way you don't have to print out separate sheets, one map, one window sheet. Then what you do, you can have your advertising up here, your logo, whatever you want to put in this area. You could have even a copy of the flyer. When you talk about flyers, this is one of my big favorite shows in this area. One mistake I always see people do is they don't put a full address, including their state. What just happened to Donald Trump when the Kansas City Chiefs won? Well, there's a Kansas City in Kansas, and there's a Kansas City in Missouri. So you think it's Kansas City in one area, but it's not. So there's cities named the same thing in different states. So you want to make sure you put the location where it's going to be, the date that the show is going to happen. You can get sponsors. I put the sponsors usually on the flyer like that. And then the full address of where the event's going to be. And I put all that information on there because people are going to ask, where is this at? Including myself, because I do run into that quite a bit where people forget some of that information. It's all important information to the people going to the show. So advertising, obviously, you can go to multiple websites. I'd do, like I say, a Facebook event post. I post flyers on carshownationals.com. There's a lot of other sites out there that do the same thing. So most of them that I know of are free. The more you can go to, the better. It's better to get the word out. My site ranks around 250,000 for traffic in the United States, which is probably the top 10 of all websites in the U.S. So it's not a bad thing to send me a copy at carshownationals.com@yahoo.com, and I'll get those flyers added onto the website. And it's free since 2001. I've been doing it. Raffles and auctions, that's something to talk about. If you're going to have a raffle or an auction, you got to check into it, because in our state, I live in Minnesota, and those are gambling. Those things are gambling. Even if you're going to raise money for a charity, you do probably have to have someone with a license to even hold that in your car show, or you could get in trouble. So it's something serious to check into. I know a lot of people do it, and they probably don't even know it's illegal in some places. But you might have to have a license, and if you don't, you can get big hefty fine or in trouble. So even if it's for charity, that's what I found out. So I didn't run it. Didn't want to get in trouble. I did find someone that would maybe partner with me, but when they do that, because they have their license. That money won't go to the charity that you're running. It's going to go to the place that has the license. So it might go to a chamber or whatever. Usually it's not going to go to your cause. So that's something to think about on that. So just check into it, be safe, don't get in trouble. Registration, I've always done on-site registration. You could probably do it online also, where you take in money and fill out the window cards as you're doing that. Um, I just usually had a registration table right when you drive into the show. People help you fill that out, so you have to have that staffed, uh, and then they'll get a window card. Typically, what are you going to charge for a show? Around here, people charge between $5, $10, not outrageous amounts of money. But you'll see like the World of Wheels, those guys, they charge $20 because they have really high overhead expenses. If you have a celebrity at your show, they could cost upwards to, you know, 2,000 to, I've had someone that was asking 20,000 for an hour appearance. Um, so, that's a lot of overhead. So that's why these guys have to charge what they do. Um, Also, when they're renting a stadium, it's not cheap. It costs them money. So, that's going to be another reason why it's going to cost you more to go to a show that's like the higher end shows that have the high end celebrities. Because you have all those overhead costs that you got to figure. A lot of people do dash plaques. What a dash plaque is, it just mentions the show, has little information, the date, and some people hand those out to like the first 100 cars or 200 cars, just as a little special incentive for them to get a plaque where they can display it, or collect them to some of the car shows they've been to. Some people hand out goodie bags where they'll get different things from some of their sponsors to hand out. I've done stuff like that before. Again, it's taking a team of people because you're going to have to contact a lot of vendors, manufacturers, see if they donate to what you're doing. I feel it's a little easier to run a charity show because the money is actually going to something really good that you're going to be doing. Like they're going to be paying for or helping pay for these kids to go to Fort Worth, Texas for the national beta competition. So you can use a car show to raise money for great causes. I'd say a lot of car shows do that. If you look on the flyers on my website, you're going to see a lot of them are for charity, um, and and that's what I like doing, charity stuff. Um, T-shirts, that's something to look into. And again, that's an overhead cost. You're going to have the money even before the show starts to be able to purchase the shirts that you're going to sell. So that's another thing to look into. Um, on the vendor side, if you have vendors come, you could, especially if it's charity, take a portion of what they make, or just have a set fee for the vendors. Food vendors also, you can either work out a portion of their sales, and that's kind of something I failed on. I just wanted to get people there as a selling food, stuff like that. So I didn't even take any money from them. They had brought like a silent auction basket, which was really nice. Um, but yeah, I guess that's one thing I failed on. But this is what you learn. You learn stuff like this that you should have took a portion of that money um, to go to the charity. But this is it's a learning experience. I learned a lot. I've learned that you can work really hard, go all over the place, handing out flyers, I suggest handing out flyers, printing them up, bring them to different car shows, hand them out. Um, so it takes a little footwork, to get the word out. But the internet's gonna help also. That's why a lot of people do flyers on the internet, on Facebook. Um, that way, the word is getting out. You're covering all ends of it by handing out the flyers. But I'd also do as much as you can to advertise the show. I don't know if you want to get radio or TV ads that can get into bigger money too. So it depends on what you think you're gonna do for cars. Uh, you better have a pretty large area if you're gonna do something like that, but it's also gonna take a lot of money. You might need barriers or cones. That's something to check into. How you're gonna mark off the lot. So all these things come into play. Um, so make sure you plan ahead. You want to plan ahead early. You don't want to just do it, let's say, next month and you have a show. You could do a cruise in. That usually you can partner with a restaurant and they can do like a special or something like that, and you could have people meet there. Typically, not charge them; they're just going to drive in, maybe hang out at the restaurant, hang out with friends, stuff like that. Um, but that's cruise-ins are pretty popular around here. We do quite a few of them where people just meet up at a restaurant, and that's another way to have a little car show. Um, I've had nursing homes that do want to have a little car show for their residents. Um, so there's little things that they do to so these residents can see some of the old cars. Um, I think it's pretty cool that some people do that. Um, if there's any questions, just let me know. I'm going to be posting this on YouTube and Facebook. So I'm sure I might do other videos on this. If anyone's got questions, I can respond or uh, or whatever. But just send me an email, Mike at carshownationals.com at yahoo.com. And I kind of blew through everything here faster than I thought I would, but I just want to make sure I didn't forget anything. Sponsors, some people do sponsors. They'll have like a silver tier sponsor, a gold sponsor, a bronze sponsor, and they'll have different amounts. Like, let's say you want the gold sponsor, you want $1,000, and you're gonna put their logo on your flyer. What I usually do is also get a poster board and actually get it printed. A great place for that was Office Max or Office Depot. You get a poster board that you can print in all color and have all their logos on it and thanking them for sponsoring your show. I think that's a nice little added thing for the sponsors. Or you can get a banner made, like I say, like the one behind me with all your sponsors on it, thanking them for supporting what you're doing. Um, and hopefully it'll be an annual deal and you can do it every year. Or we have a lot of car shows around here that have been around for 40, 50 years now. So you could always start something big. Um, that's what I had planned on doing. But uh, someday I'll be looking at another show maybe in the future. It just takes a lot of time. I have a 5-year-old, so it's hard for me to get a lot of stuff done with a 5-year-old. So, but like I say, suggest get a team, hook up with a club in your area, and that will help you be more successful. And a lot of times, a lot of these members of different car clubs in your area have put on shows, so they'll be more familiar uh, with putting one on. You got to remember also that you're going to have the car show parking, and then you're going to have spectator parking. So remember to include that in your calculations and figuring how many people are going to be able to park where. So that's another thing that you could run into if it's a larger show. But like I say, any questions, give me an email at carshownationals.com at yahoo.com, and make sure you send your flyers to the same address, carshownationals.com at yahoo.com, and I'll get them put on carshownationals.com, the website. And make sure you check that out and get some flyer ideas. I'd definitely suggest making flyers. That's a big thing. And then putting them on a website and doing your Facebook posts. Um, Anything and everything you can do to get the word out. One of the theories I've been told in the past was you almost need to do 5 posts a day. It sounds like a lot, but it helps get it in front of people more. So that's a good suggestion for anyone running a car show. Um, it's a advertising idea, and that's a lot of people have done that. And just make sure you promote and promote and promote. So you guys have a good day, and hopefully this will help you on running a car show. Thank you.